If you're feeling stuck, just waiting for a breakthrough, then I hope this message resonates with you. Because I believe that one day our pain will turn into something purposeful. And that with a little patience, drive, and most importantly, faith, this negative energy will be channeled not only into something positive for yourself, as a driving force that you could use to achieve your own goals, but also by having the foresight that this same energy that is going into something positive for yourself will one day help somebody else achieve their own goals. And you will become the mentor that they have been looking for because they can rely on you to know exactly what they're going through. Because have you ever noticed that the people you can most identify with and trust for guidance are the people who can relate to the same struggles that you're currently facing? Because they went through their own journey of suffering and came out the other side. And it's easier to trust that person because they know the pain and created their own path that others may now follow. And they have become the example, and their testimony is the roadmap for the people that are following behind them. Just as former alcoholics become AA mentors, or the person who's been overweight their whole life who transforms their mind and body and now teaches others how they can do the same for themselves. So if this is you, I hope you can use the pain that you're going through as the fuel that will one day bring something very positive to someone else.
I'm Travis, and I've been helping people break through their physical and mental barriers by helping them shift their focus to their internal state, and also by viewing these struggles that we all go through as not only necessary, but beneficial parts of our growth. Because I believe that it's through these struggles in these painful periods of life that we gain insight and perspectives that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And they can also reveal gifts that we didn't know we had. And my journey through this process was very similar because when I was younger and in high school, I was very anxious, socially anxious that is, and felt like I had a hard time making friends. And even though I was in, I guess, the popular crowd, you can say, because I was a athlete and I played all sports all year round, and everybody knew who I was because I did these things and I was good at them. But I always felt like if people really knew me, they wouldn't be as impressed as what they saw on a football field or a basketball court. And because of that, I felt like there was something wrong with me, and that even though I was athletic and maybe I had some physical gifts, I felt like the intellectual, the personal, and the emotional gifts were not there. And that when it related to those things, I was dealt a bad hand. The cards weren't in my favor genetically for those things. And it left me feeling a little hopeless. And I played the victim, quite honestly. Not only with others, even though they didn't know it, but with myself. And I didn't put myself in positions to learn those things really until certain moments in my life happened and there was enough pain and resentment in a way built up that the desire to change was stronger. And one of the things that helped change that was at a young age I got into bodybuilding. And that gave me a sense of confidence and a false sense of value, if you will, because I felt like I could gain some praise in a way, or people would look highly upon me if I built a strong and athletic physique, that just from the perspective from afar, that I was somebody who was hardworking and dedicated and persistent, and that those values would be intriguing to people or make them want to know me. But that was at a distance because I wouldn't want them to come up and talk to me, because if that was the case, then they would see that maybe all the perceptions that they had were wrong because of how shy I was and not able to talk very confidently to people, or at least in my internal state, that was the case. But through synchronicities, I would say, I started reading, and that was something I never enjoyed. I always said that I hated reading, which was not really true. It was hard for me because, again, I never felt like I had any intellectual superiority or any intellectual power on my end. I wasn't the greatest student. I felt like I had a hard time in school, and I got okay grades, but it wasn't easy. And again, I felt like an imposter. But I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that moment, I realized that these things that I labeled myself as, and this bad genetic hand that I felt like I had been dealt, was not true. And that these were things that I could change, just like I did with my body when I felt like I was skinny and I wasn't strong and I didn't like being the lanky looking kid. I wanted to be strong, and I didn't want to look as weak as I felt. And so working on my physical body helped with that. But then reading and implementing the things that I learned in these books on personal development and psychology, and even getting into more of a spiritual realm where I was learning meditation and having a belief in a higher power, in a creative force that I was a part of, all made me feel like the pain and the struggles that I went through were for a reason, because I then devoted most of my time to reading and learning and growing, because then that made me feel better about myself. And while there was that component of wanting to feel better in the moment, I also realized that I was learning skills and I was creating habits for myself that were going to take me much farther than that momentary pain that I was trying to overcome. So that when I became confident in myself and was comfortable in my abilities to communicate with people, whoever that may be, that the same skills that I learned to develop that feeling or that confidence, I can then apply to the next thing that life is going to throw my way. And by having the new enjoyment, right, or creating this passion for reading and learning and growing that came out of necessity, actually ended up benefiting people around me. Because of my enjoyment for bodybuilding and fitness, I got into personal training. And when I started working with people, I really I overemphasized my knowledge of science and working out so that I could get by, and that people would believe me and trust me because I knew the scientific fundamentals and principles. But what I came to realize after years of working with people is that the ones that I had the biggest impact on and made the biggest changes in their life were the ones that I was being vulnerable with and expressing these beliefs that I have and these experiences that I've had through my own personal growth. And whether it was the quotes or the spiritual philosophies or my own experiences that I learned going through this process, that I can then channel through me and help others along that same way. And then I realized that fitness and exercise was just a part, and all these other things that were, again, a beautiful transformation of pain into something being purposeful for not only myself but other people. That's what people really resonated with the most. And because of that, I decided I wanted to go even farther in school. And so all the things that I implemented for my personal life, I implemented into my education, my formal education. And when I did that, I was taking some of the hardest courses I ever did, and then I was getting the best grades. And so I finished my undergrad and I realized I like personal training and I feel like this is my passion and this is where my zone of genius is and where I can make the biggest impact in people's lives. I want to learn as much as I can. So then I applied and got into physical therapy school. So then I went back to school for 3 more years and got a doctorate. And again, taking the hardest courses and getting into schools that were highly competitive at the time just because there was a lot of people applying. And then my belief in not being a good student was also false because I put in the work on myself so that I didn't have any of these outside factors to blame. The pressure of life created this impulse within me to make changes and to figure it out and to have this belief that although I'm not happy with where I am now, or rather I'm not content with where I am now, I don't have to stay there. And I have everything available to me at the moment to make a change and to start moving in the direction that I desire. And again, the most beautiful part about that is that because I was determined to move in that direction, I was learning lessons along the way so that I could look back and help somebody else that's going through that same thing, but in their own way. And that all the pain that I went through was not only beneficial for me, but then it was going to be beneficial for somebody else. And then it all became worth it. I would never change all of that pain and anxiety and depression that I went through for many years of my life. Off and on, of course, at times. I won't say it has just been that way all the time, but it's much harder to learn things when everything is positive and things are always going your way. But when you are in the depths of it, then your character is being revealed. And there was a quote by Wayne Dyer who said, when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? It's orange juice because that's what's inside. And so when life squeezes you and puts pressure on you, what comes out is what's inside. You don't have to have all the answers right now, but having the courage to be willing to try and learn and grow from this experience, you're going to be grateful for one day looking back. And so as a final note, I just want to add, the only way you fail in this process is if you quit. And so if you made it this far, thank you for watching the video, and I wish you the best, and I'll see you in the next one.